Naruto lost his right hand at the end of the original manga. This came after his final clash with Sasuke, which proved too powerful for their bodies to withstand. The funny thing about this is that Naruto the Last leaked months before this occurred in the manga, thus revealing Naruto's new hand. This of course sparked many theories at the time. Did Naruto create a new hand using the Yang seal? Did he steal one from the White Zetsu, or was it simply a prosthetic infused with his chakra? The answer to this question then came a chapter before the manga's finale, with Sakura telling Sasuke that his new hand, crafted from the cells of Hashirama himself, is almost ready. This all but confirmed that Naruto's new hand was crafted using these cells as well, which led many to believe that Naruto would awaken, would release, like many did before him. The problem is that this never happened, and they never addressed why. You see, Naruto wasn't the first character to receive Hashirama cells. In fact, he's one of the only two characters that were given these cells, but for some reason didn't manifest, would release. The first example of this would be Obito Uchiha. Over half his body was modified using these cells after his body was partially crushed during the Kanabi Bridge incident. Because of this, Obito was able to use advanced forms of wood release without any prior training or proficiency in either of the two sub-elements, that of course being water and earth release. Also, even if Obito had mastery of those two elements, that wouldn't give him the ability to use wood release since it's a Kekkei. These are bloodline traits that can't be taught. They must be inherited or transplanted through experiments, which was the case here. Now of course Obito could have been lucky and simply manifested this Kekkei himself, but that doesn't appear to be the case, especially given his inability to use the sub-elements. Even so, some will argue that Obito himself couldn't use wood release, and it was just the power of the White Zetsu that encased his body. The problem with this is that he's shown to use it before merging with White Zetsu, and once again later on in the war. This of course confirms that Obito gained this power through the Hashirama cells that he received from Madara. Also, keep in mind that these aren't normal Hashirama cells, given the fact that they stem from the body of a White Zetsu. This is very significant since the White Zetsus were created by the power of the Divine Tree. These were originally the civilians captured through Infinite Tsukuyomi over 1,000 years ago, and slowly transformed into soldiers for Kaguya's army. Then Madara, after awakening the Rinnegan, summoned the Gedo statue and used it to culture cells from the bits of flesh he took from Hashirama, which is how the White Zetsu themselves attached to the Gedo statue came to possess Hashirama cells. This of course is very important since even though this isn't confirmed in the manga, Naruto's hand was likely created using the bodies of the leftover White Zetsus, many of which retreated below the Earth's surface as shown in Boruto. It also makes sense based on what we saw with Madara as well. After his battle with the Biju, he was badly damaged and even lost his right hand. This of course proved not to be an issue because he was somehow able to just take the hand of a random White Zetsu and attach it to his body. He then went on to perform hand signs and jutsus using this very same hand, which speaks to its high level of adaptability. Though it could also be the case that Madara, who had displayed compatibility with Hashirama cells, was able to quickly adjust to it because of that. In any case, Madara, just like Obito, also gained the ability to use wood release upon receiving Hashirama cells, being able to use abilities like Wood Dragon and even Deep Forest Emergence. And before anyone says, well, it's just Madara, and maybe Obito was just a special case because of how much Hashirama cells he received. I mean, over half his torso was seemingly replaced using these cells, so it makes sense why Obito would gain additional powers. And even Madara himself had more cells implanted into his body by Kabuto. So maybe Naruto simply didn't have enough Hashirama cells to awaken wood release. That of course would be a great argument to make if it wasn't for the fact that even Danzo was able to use wood release simply because of his right hand. So, in one instance, a random like Danzo is able to use wood release because of a single hand, but Naruto, the descendant of Ashura and Hashirama's literal next life, wasn't, even after receiving the cells of Hashirama himself. That simply doesn't make sense. And just to be clear, I'm not saying that every case has to be the same. But when it comes to receiving hashirama cells, it's never about whether you awaken his powers or not. It's more so about whether you awaken his powers or die. The same with Orochimaru's experiments, one of them being Yamato himself. He tested these cells on over 60 children, and all but one of them survived. It wasn't explained why that's the case, but it's known and commonly accepted that one either dies from receiving these cells or they survive and manifest his powers. Even a random kid like Yamato gained these powers despite having no genetic connection to Hashirama whatsoever. Yet Naruto, his blood descendant and reincarnate, didn't. Something isn't quite adding up here. Now, Naruto isn't the only victim of this seemingly arbitrary selection process, since even Sasuke failed to manifest wood release despite receiving Hashirama cells. Some have forgotten about this, but after Madara almost killed Sasuke by running his sword through his heart, Kabuto saved him by using Hashirama cells. In fact, he used the very same Hashirama cells he injected into Madara's body, and even pumped a lot of it into him. Yet for some reason, Sasuke didn't awaken any form of wood release. There's no reason for this. One can't say, well, he's an Uchiha because we have the Obito example, and even Madara. So why didn't this work for Sasuke? I mean, he survived just like the others, which shows that his body is compatible with these cells and can handle them, but no powers for some reason. Now, as for Naruto's case, some like to say that, well, Naruto's hand is just a prosthetic, so that is why he didn't awaken wood release. This, of course, was never stated nor implied anywhere in the manga, of course, which, even if it was true, that doesn't explain why Sasuke's, whose body was injected with these cells, also didn't manifest these powers. Also, this thing about Naruto's hand being a prosthetic is just flat out false as well. People believe this based on a chapter in Boruto when Naruto removes his hand and attached a new one made with scientific ninja tools. So I can see why they would come to that conclusion, since he's able to just remove one hand with no issues. However, if you take a closer look, the hand itself only attaches at his forearm, while his original hand goes up to his biceps, since that is how much of his arm got blown off. So when Naruto attaches this new hand, he isn't removing the original entirely. It more so appears to be the case that they made further changes to the lower section of his original hand, which allows him to detach that section and attach the scientific ninja tool. So Naruto's Hashirama cell attachments remain even when he's using the new hand, at least the upper section. The point of this is to say that Naruto's Hashirama cells are a part of him, just as much as they were a part of Danzo. That is why he's able to form seals and channel his chakra to it. That is why he's able to punch at full strength and not destroy it. This isn't just a prosthetic, it's bonded to his body, a part of his very being. Now, there's another theory which I find to be a bit more plausible. This one asserts that the bandages on Naruto's hand isn't there just for aesthetics. You see, Hashirama cells are alive in a sense and have the ability to overpower the user and even kill them. That is why most never make it past the testing phases in the first place, because even the successful ones go on to have issues. For example, after starting to run low on chakra, Danzo couldn't control and suppress the will of these cells anymore, and they just started to randomly form a massive tree, which is why Danzo had to abandon the hand itself. So this implies that one has to have enough chakra at all times, or these cells will start to overtake them and maybe turn them into a tree. That is also why the white Zetsu in the war turned into trees the moment Naruto interacted with them in KCM. The Ninetales chakra has a lot of life force, which pretty much supercharged these cells on contact, causing them to become unstable and overpower the user. This part, of course, is very important to remember, since despite this being an established fact in the manga, Naruto is somehow able to use this hand with his KCM chakra and have no problems. I mean, you could argue that this isn't universal, since it's not like Naruto's KCM chakra caused this reaction in Madara, Obito, or even Sasuke's Hashirama cells. So maybe this only happens to those who aren't strong enough to resist it, such as the white Zetsu. This could also apply to Naruto as well. The reason why his hand doesn't go crazy despite being connected to this energy is simply because Naruto is strong enough to control it. that is very much a possibility. With that said, that doesn't explain how Naruto, despite having almost all his chakra ripped from his body in Naruto the Last to the point that he had to sleep for over 3 days, didn't get overtaken by these cells. Even after Baron mode, where most of his chakra was burnt out and he could barely move, nothing happened. As opposed to Danzo, of course, who completely lost control of this power. And before you guys say that this is because Danzo is a random and he isn't a Senju cousin reincarnate like Naruto, I want you to remember that despite that, Danzo is able to use wood release while Naruto couldn't. In fact, these cells also boosted his strength and longevity, so multiple benefits for this random, while the bloodline reincarnate didn't get any. And even then, Naruto is almost half dead at these points with almost 0 chakra, so that wouldn't even help him. With that said, this does bring us back to his bandages, which could have some sealing formula that restricts and binds Hashirama's powers to a large degree. That means instead of relying on the user's chakra, the sealing formula on the bandages does most of the work. This also explains why Naruto never removes those bandages even while using the washroom, which is less than sanitary, I'd assume. Though one could say that it's a design choice, so anime logic dictates that it must never be removed under any circumstances. Similar to Kakashi's mask, where even while he's consuming, he still has it on, somehow. So we can't just turn off our brain and use that logic for sure, but there could be an in-universe reason if they choose to explore that. This would explain why the Ninetales chakra doesn't bother the hand, and even while low on chakra, it doesn't go crazy. It would also answer the main question of this video, which is why Naruto doesn't have wood release. Well, his bandages suppress Hashirama's cells, which makes it easier to use. The side effect, of course, is that it also suppresses the abilities derived from those cells, such as wood release. This is also somewhat consistent with how these Hashirama cell users manifest wood style specifically. It's always from the part of the body that has the cells themselves. When Obito first used wood release, it sprouted from the hand with the Hashirama cells. And it also came from that very same hand the second time it was used as well. The same for Danzo, his wood style only sprouts from his Hashirama cell hand instead of his entire body. Now this, of course, is somewhat different for people like Madara and Yamato, who both have these cells coursing throughout their entire bodies, which likely increases the level to which they could manifest these powers. So even if Naruto could use wood release, it likely would have been limited to sprouting trees from his right hand, and since the sealing formula is on that hand, that explains why he doesn't use it. Now this could change in the future if Naruto does come back and aid in the fight against the Shinju. Wood release itself has the power to suppress the Biju, likely because they stemmed from the Tentals, otherwise known as the God Tree. Now one might say these Shinjus are part of the Tentals, so why would they be affected by wood release? Well, it's kind of a similar concept to the Tentals Jinchuriki being susceptible to nature energy. That's because the Tentals itself is primarily made up of natural energy itself. So wood style being the very nature of the Tentals could also be what's able to damage it. All Naruto has to do is remove that bandage and release that power, assuming this theory is correct, of course. Who knows, maybe Naruto's Senju lineage and the fact that he's Hashirama's next life allows him to manifest more power from these cells. Just imagine Naruto pulling out the wood golem or the 1000 hand Buddha statue that negged Madara's Susanoo-clad full power Kurama. That would definitely go crazy. Combine this with Naruto Sage Mode and you have a top tier, even absent of Kurama. Now of course, the more plausible answer to the question of the video is that they simply didn't give him it since they didn't want him to overshine the Boruto characters. Which does make sense since there are many other cases of powers that he hasn't used in the Boruto manga. But that's kind of an outer-verse reason. I like in-universe reasonings that have logical explanations, and I think even if they didn't plan this, they should adopt this theory into the story and, you know, make Naruto shine when he comes back. I guess we'll see. With that said, if you guys like the video, drop a like. If you're new, subscribe, and also consider becoming a member if you're enjoying the content. And I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.